At 10 years old, I always tried to keep my mother out of my room. I was shocked when she discovered what I had been hiding there.
Laura watched as her daughter Scarlett quickly shut her bedroom door. This behavior was becoming more and more frequent. Laura had always been a devoted and loving mother, paying attention to every detail of her daughter's life. However, in the past few weeks, Scarlett had begun to act strangely. Whenever Laura approached her room, Scarlett would hastily close the door as if hiding something. This change in Scarlett's behavior deeply worried Laura. "Why is my daughter avoiding me?" she wondered, the thought nagging at her. Questions swirled in Laura's mind, and anxiety began to erode her peace. The next morning, while preparing coffee, Laura observed Scarlett leaving her room with tense shoulders and a distant look. "Good morning, Scarlett," Laura said, trying to sound as natural as possible. Scarlett quickly replied and averted her gaze. Laura noticed the growing distance between them and felt a pang of sadness. "Scarlett, are you okay? Is something bothering you?" Laura tried to ask, but Scarlett just shrugged and continued packing her school backpack. Laura sighed deeply, feeling frustration building up inside her. It was as if an invisible wall had been erected between them, and Laura didn't know how to break it down. Laura decided to wait until Scarlett left for school before trying to understand what was happening. When she heard the front door close, she headed to her daughter's room. The door was locked, only adding to her worry. "Why does she lock it?" she asked herself, feeling a tightness in her chest. Laura tried turning the doorknob again, knowing it wouldn't open. As expected, the door remained shut, and Laura resolved to find a way to handle the situation without invading Scarlett's privacy. Later that afternoon, when Scarlett returned from school, Laura decided to try a different approach. "Scarlett, is there anything you want to talk to me about?" she asked softly, trying not to sound accusatory. Scarlett paused for a moment, her eyes shining with something Laura couldn't identify. "No, Mom. It's nothing," she answered quickly, in an almost desperate tone. Laura watched as her daughter ran to her room and closed the door again. Laura's anxiety only grew, and she felt she needed to get to the bottom of what was happening. At dinner time, Laura tried to start a conversation again. "Scarlett, you can tell Mom anything. I'm on your side, no matter what," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. Scarlett looked at her mother for a moment, tears welling up in her eyes, but said nothing. She just stood up, went back to her room, and closed the door. That night, Laura couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned in bed, her mind filled with terrible scenarios about what Scarlett might be hiding. Is she involved in something dangerous? Is someone bullying her? The endless questions wouldn't let her rest. She got up and walked down the hallway, stopping in front of Scarlett's closed bedroom door. "What are you hiding, Scarlett?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Worry and love for her daughter were consuming her, and she knew she needed to take action soon. Laura lay down, trying to sleep, but memories of her husband before he passed away came flooding back. He had been the pillar that held their family together. Since his passing, Laura had to take on everything by herself. Laura loved Scarlett with all her heart, but her husband's loss had made her more overprotective of Scarlett. "I need to be strong for her," Laura thought as she straightened her daughter's bed. Happy memories of their time together overwhelmed her, and she wondered how things had changed so dramatically in such a short time. Laura was a dedicated nurse, always working long hours at the hospital. "I just want to protect my daughter," Laura thought, remembering sleepless nights worrying about the future. The fear of failing as a mother gnawed at her, and seeing Scarlett so distant only amplified that anxiety. Laura remembered Scarlett before her father passed away. She was always smiling, a cheerful girl who told her mother everything. Since her husband's death, the two had been struggling to find a new balance. Laura knew she needed to be patient, but she couldn't ignore Scarlett's current state. Gazing at the photo of her late husband on the table, she murmured, "I just want to do what's best for you, Scarlett," running her finger along the picture frame. The pain of loss and worry for her daughter mingled in her heart, and she felt she needed to find a way to protect Scarlett and uncover what was happening, no matter the cost. The next morning, Scarlett got up early to go to school. Laura was already up, preparing breakfast in the kitchen. Scarlett entered the kitchen with her head down and shoulders hunched, as if carrying an invisible burden. "Good morning, Mom," Scarlett tried to sound cheerful, but her voice was weak and lifeless. Laura looked at her daughter, noticing the fatigue in her eyes. "Good morning, Scarlett. Did you sleep well?" Laura asked, trying to hide the worry in her voice. Scarlett just nodded, grabbed a slice of bread, and quickly left the kitchen. Laura watched her daughter walk away, feeling a tightness in her chest. "What on earth happened to you, Scarlett?" she thought, feeling helpless.
I walked to school with heavy steps, each one feeling like I was dragging a ton of bricks. At school, I was the shy, quiet girl, a stark contrast to my former self. I watched my classmates play and chatter excitedly, their laughter a distant echo in my ears. My mind wandered to happier days before Dad passed away, memories that now felt like scenes from someone else's life. I remembered our walks in the park, Dad's funny stories that always made me giggle uncontrollably. I wish I could go back to those times, I thought, fighting back tears that threatened to spill over at any moment. The loss of my father left a gaping hole in my heart, an emptiness I didn't know how to fill. In the classroom, I took my usual seat at the back, as far from everyone else as possible. I stared at the teacher, but my mind was miles away, lost in a fog of grief and confusion. Dad always said I was strong, I reminded myself, desperately seeking comfort in his words. But without him here, I felt lost, unsure of how to navigate this new, darker world. The teacher's voice faded into background noise as I struggled to focus, my mind searching for an escape from the pain. During recess, I found solace in the school courtyard, the only place where I felt I could breathe. I sat under a tree, hugging my knees to my chest. Looking up at the sky, I asked myself, why has everything changed so much? The other girls played and laughed around me, but I felt like an outsider, separated from their world by an invisible wall of grief. "I wish you were here, Dad," I thought, a single tear tracing its way down my cheek. I tried to concentrate on my studies, but each page of my textbook seemed to trigger another memory of Dad. He used to make homework fun, turning even the dullest assignments into adventures. Everything feels so difficult now, I thought, flipping through pages without really reading the words. The letters blurred together, mirroring the confusion in my heart. When classes finally ended, I headed home, once again avoiding Mom and her worried glances.
Laura noticed her daughter's somber expression but didn't want to pressure her. She tried to start a conversation by asking, "How was school, Scarlett?" "It was fine, Mom," Scarlett replied without meeting her mother's eyes. Laura felt a pang in her heart but respected her daughter's feelings. She tried to encourage Scarlett, saying, "You can always talk to me if anything's bothering you." Scarlett just nodded and quickly headed to her room. The tension between mother and daughter was palpable, like a thick fog settling in the house. Laura watched her daughter's retreating figure, feeling helpless and worried. She wondered what secret Scarlett was keeping locked away in her heart. The distance between them seemed to grow with each passing day, and Laura longed for the close relationship they once shared. She sighed deeply, hoping that time would heal whatever was troubling her beloved child.
I closed the door to my room and collapsed onto my bed, feeling the weight of the world on my young shoulders. As I stared at the ceiling, my heart ached with a mixture of sadness and frustration. Would Mom ever understand the secret I was hiding? The thought made my stomach churn with a cocktail of emotions I couldn't quite name. I sat up, my body moving as if it were made of lead, and peered under my bed. Just thinking about what I had hidden there sent waves of comfort and anxiety washing over me. It was like a warm blanket and a thorn in my side all at once. "This is all I have now," I whispered to myself, my eyes fixed on my secret refuge. The loneliness I felt was deep, but I had found a way to make myself feel a little better, even if no one else understood. Oh, how I wished Mom could understand. If only I could tell her everything, maybe it would all change. But the fear of being rejected, of seeing disappointment in her eyes, kept my lips sealed tighter. As night fell, I lay in bed, clutching Dad's photo like a lifeline. Memories of happier times flooded my mind, and tears rolled down my cheeks like tiny rivers of sorrow. "I just want to help," I whimpered to the darkness, desperately wishing I could find a way to ease the pain I felt and bridge the growing gap between Mom and me. The next morning, I left for school early as usual, my secret weighing heavily on my heart.
Laura watched her daughter leave through the front door, her heart heavy with a mixture of worry and determination. She knew she had to find out what was going on and resolved to uncover the secret Scarlett was hiding. Laura climbed the stairs and stopped in front of Scarlett's bedroom door. When she tried to turn the doorknob, she found it was locked. A wave of frustration and concern washed over her. Although she knew forcing her way in would be an invasion of privacy, her need to protect her daughter outweighed her hesitation. Glancing around, she spotted a screwdriver on a nearby table. "This should do the trick," she muttered to herself, picking up the tool with trembling hands. Laura inserted the screwdriver into the keyhole and applied pressure. At first, there was resistance, but with a little more force, the lock broke with a loud snap. The sound echoed down the hallway, and Laura held her breath. The door slowly swung open, allowing her to enter Scarlett's room. The first thing Laura noticed was the intense, unpleasant odor emanating from the room. Her expression changed from concern to shock. "What on earth? Is something rotting in here?" she whispered as she cautiously stepped inside. The smell was unbearable, and Laura covered her nose with her hand. Looking around, everything seemed normal at first glance. However, something caught her eye under the bed. Slowly bending down, she lifted the bed cover, revealing the source of the smell. Laura was stunned to find multiple stray cats hiding under Scarlett's bed. Some were severely ill, others malnourished, and a few were emitting a terrible stench. She felt a jolt of shock run through her body. "Oh, my God," she gasped, taking a step back. Confronted with the cats in such poor condition, she was at a loss for words. Carefully approaching the cats, her heart was pounding. "Scarlett," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. Laura began examining the cats one by one, feeling waves of pride and sorrow for her daughter. How on earth has she been caring for these animals all by herself, she wondered, impressed by her daughter's kindness. At the same time, her heart was breaking at the condition of the cats. They were severely weakened. Laura realized this was an emergency. She grabbed her phone and called the nearest animal hospital. "Hello, this is an emergency. I found multiple stray cats in my daughter's room. They're all in very poor condition," she explained, her voice shaking. The receptionist assured her they would respond immediately. Laura hung up and turned back to the cats. "I promise I'll help you all," she said, trying to convey calm to the animals as she waited for help to arrive. Laura began cleaning the room, attempting to provide a more comfortable environment. "My daughter is so brave, but she must be so lonely," she thought, feeling the weight of her husband's loss even more heavily. Finally, the staff from the animal hospital arrived and began examining the cats. Laura watched with a heavy heart as the veterinarians assessed the animals' health conditions. One of the vets, showing understanding, told Laura, "We need to take them to the hospital for treatment." Laura nodded, feeling a slight sense of relief. "Thank you. Please take good care of them," she replied, her voice still shaky. The veterinarian started loading the cats into the rescue vehicle. Once all the cats were removed, Scarlett's room felt empty and lonely. Laura sat on the bed, feeling tears roll down her cheeks. She was struggling with the fact that her daughter had been secretly caring for these cats all by herself. Laura knew she needed to talk to Scarlett and understand her motives, but she also realized that conversation wouldn't be easy. Wiping away her tears, Laura began tidying up the room. She was preparing herself for the conversation she would have with Scarlett later. She wanted to convey to her daughter that she wasn't alone and that she could always rely on her mother, no matter what. "I'll do everything I can to make sure you feel safe and loved," she thought, steeling her resolve. Laura's love and concern for Scarlett gave her the strength to move forward, despite the shock and sadness she felt.
I rushed up the stairs when I got home from school, my heart pounding with excitement to see my kittens. But as I reached my bedroom door, I felt my world crumble around me. The lock was broken, and I knew something was terribly wrong. My hands trembled as I pushed open the door, and what I saw made my stomach drop like a stone. My room was clean, spotless even, but my precious kittens were nowhere to be seen. It felt like someone had ripped out a part of my soul. "Where are my cats?" I cried out, my voice cracking with desperation. I could hear the panic in my own words, echoing off the empty walls of my room. Mom appeared at the door, her face etched with worry. She started to speak, but I couldn't bear to hear her explanations. "How could you do this?" I screamed, tears streaming down my face like rivers of betrayal. "Give me back my cats." I saw the shock in Mom's eyes, probably surprised that her little 10-year-old could unleash such fury. But she didn't understand, those cats were my world, my secret comfort in a life that felt so empty since Dad died. Mom tried to calm me down, her voice steady but pleading. She said she wanted to know what was troubling me, what I was hiding. She thought if I had told her, we could have cared for the cats together. But how could she understand? I shook my head in disbelief, feeling a storm of emotions swirling inside me. "You don't get it," I yelled, my voice raw with emotion. "You don't understand anything." I could see the pain in Mom's eyes, mirroring my own. She begged me to talk to her, to tell her everything I was feeling. But the words wouldn't come. How could I explain the void I was trying to fill, the pain I was trying to heal? I stared at her, my eyes burning with anger and despair. "You'll never understand," I shouted, before bolting from the room. My feet carried me away, but I couldn't outrun the ache in my heart.
Laura chased after Scarlett, but the girl was faster. "Scarlett, come back," she shouted, trying to catch up with her daughter, but Scarlett had already run out the front door and down the street. Laura stopped on the sidewalk, out of breath and feeling desperate. She called out, "Scarlett," but her daughter was nowhere to be seen. With her heart pounding, Laura ran through the neighborhood streets, imagining all sorts of possibilities. "Where are you, Scarlett?" she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. As Laura was running down the street, her phone rang. Glancing at the screen, she saw it was the animal hospital. "Hello," she answered, her voice trembling. "Hello, is this Laura?" "This is Eric, the owner of the animal hospital. I'm calling because there's something I need to discuss with you," he said in a serious tone. "One of the cats you brought in was extremely weak and has passed away." Laura was hit by a wave of sadness and guilt. "Oh God, no," she murmured, tears streaming down her face. "Doctor, my daughter will be devastated. She's already so hurt." Eric paused for a moment before asking, "Laura, what exactly happened? If you'd like, you can tell me about it." Laura took a deep breath and began to explain. "Those cats were being secretly cared for by my daughter in her room, without my knowledge. I discovered them today and brought them to you." When my daughter found out the cats were gone, she became upset and ran away from home, she said, her voice shaking as she cried. My daughter is missing. Doctor, I don't know what to do. Eric listened carefully and then said, Laura, can you describe your daughter? I'll help look for her. Laura felt a little relieved hearing this. Scarlett is 10 years old, with bright blonde hair and big blue eyes. She's wearing a red jacket and jeans. Eric noted down the details and promised to help find the girl. Laura continued running, searching for Scarlett. Please, God. Let me find my daughter, she thought desperately. Guilt and fear were consuming her. I shouldn't have acted on my own without talking to her first, she reflected, feeling at a loss. The thought of how devastating the cat's death would be for Scarlett made her heart ache even more. I just want to protect her, why is everything going so wrong? Laura stopped at a nearby park, out of breath and feeling a tightness in her chest. She asked everyone she met if they had seen a girl matching Scarlett's description. Has anyone seen my daughter? She cried out, her voice trembling with desperation. People sympathized, but no one had seen Scarlett. She must be somewhere, Laura thought, refusing to give up. Her determination to find her daughter kept her going, even as hope began to fade. Laura's phone rang again. It was Eric. Laura, we're still searching, but we haven't found Scarlett yet. Don't give up. We'll keep looking, he said, trying to comfort her. Laura thanked him and hung up, feeling slightly encouraged. I will find her, she promised herself, continuing her search through the park and adjacent streets. With tears in her eyes, Laura looked up at the sky and whispered, Please, God. Bring Scarlett back to me. She knew she needed to be strong, not just for herself, but for her daughter too. We'll get through this together, she thought, resolving to find Scarlett and make everything right. Meanwhile, Eric, the veterinarian, was driving through the streets, keeping a close eye on every corner and sidewalk. Laura's words were fresh in his mind, and he felt the urgency to find Scarlett quickly. A few minutes later, he spotted a familiar figure sitting on the sidewalk. She seemed to be hugging a kitten. He approached slowly and soon recognized that it was indeed Scarlett. His heart ached seeing the sadness on the girl's face. Hello, you must be Scarlett, right? I'm Dr. Eric, the veterinarian. Is everything okay? He said gently, trying not to startle her.
I lifted my head in surprise when I heard my name, my eyes stinging and swollen from all the crying I'd been doing. How do you know my name? I asked, my voice quivering like a leaf in the wind. The world around me seemed to blur, as if I was looking through a rain-streaked window, and I clutched the kitten in my arms even tighter. I felt so small and lost, like a tiny boat adrift in a vast ocean, and this stranger knowing my name both scared and intrigued me. The pain of losing my father, the fear of losing my kittens, it all swirled inside me like a tornado, threatening to tear me apart. I looked at the man, trying to decide if he was a friend or a foe in this moment when I felt so alone and misunderstood.
Eric knelt beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. He explained that Laura, Scarlett's mother, had told him about her, describing her as a kind-hearted girl who loved taking care of cats. He informed her that the kittens from her room were now at his hospital. Scarlett hugged the kitten tighter, feeling a mix of relief and distrust. She asked if he would treat them, searching his eyes for sincerity. Eric nodded gently with a smile, suggesting they work together to help the kitten. He proposed taking it to his hospital for treatment. Scarlett felt immense relief at his words and agreed, expressing her desire to save the kitten and not lose anyone else. Her tears began anew as the weight of her responsibility and recent loss finally released. Seeing the girl cry, Eric felt a tightness in his chest and decided not to tell her about the kitten that had passed away. As he held Scarlett and the kitten, Eric considered how best to calm her. He told her they'd go to the hospital where she could see the other kittens and help care for this one. Eric hoped that being at the hospital would bring peace to both Scarlet and the kittens. He messaged Laura, informing her that he'd found Scarlet and was taking her to the hospital. Upon arrival, Eric opened the door for Scarlet and guided her to a comfortable chair. He offered to get her some water and quickly went to the kitchen. Returning with a glass, he handed it to Scarlet, who accepted it with trembling hands. She thanked him, sipping slowly and trying to hold back tears. Eric sat beside her, observing her with concern. He praised Scarlet's bravery and big heart for caring for the kittens, adding that her mother was worried and wanted to see her. Scarlet looked at him with a mix of guilt and relief, explaining she hadn't meant to worry her mom and just wanted to help the kittens. Eric nodded, understanding the complex situation. He assured her that her desire to help the kittens was good and promised they'd care for this kitten together, certain it would get better. Scarlet managed a weak smile, still holding the kitten lovingly. She asked if he really promised, and Eric nodded, smiling, affirming his commitment. As Scarlet began to calm down, Eric thought about the message he'd sent to Laura. He suggested they wait together for her mother's arrival, and Scarlet agreed, hugging the kitten. She responded with a slightly calmer demeanor, saying she understood. A few minutes later, Laura arrived at the hospital, out of breath and with eyes red from crying. As soon as she saw Scarlet, she rushed over and embraced her tightly. "Scarlet, thank goodness you're safe," she exclaimed through her tears. Scarlet clung to her mother, feeling a sense of security in her arms. "I'm sorry, Mom. I just wanted to help the kittens," she explained, her voice still shaky. Laura stroked Scarlet's hair, trying to calm her. "I understand. We'll take care of them together from now on," she said, feeling relieved to have finally found her daughter. Laura gazed at Scarlet with a mixture of relief and concern on her face. "Let's go home and rest, then we can talk about what to do next," Laura said, trying to sound calm and comforting. Scarlet shook her head, still holding the kitten. "I won't go home until I see the other cats. I need to make sure they're okay with my own eyes," she replied with a determined voice. Laura and Eric exchanged glances, aware of the weight of the truth they had to share. Eric realized it was his responsibility to explain the situation to Scarlet. "All right, Scarlet. Let's go see them. We can talk on the way," he said, preparing to break the news to the girl. The three of them began walking through the hospital together. Laura held Scarlet's hand, while Eric walked beside them, ready to provide any necessary support. Each step felt heavy, and Eric knew the news about the deceased kitten would be very difficult for Scarlet to hear. When they reached the area where the cats were being treated, Scarlet looked around, mentally counting the animals. Suddenly, she stopped, her eyes filling with panic. "Where's?" she asked in a trembling voice. Eric took a deep breath and shared the truth. "Scarlet, there's something I need to tell you. One of the kittens was very weak and passed away. Unfortunately, we couldn't save it. It was very seriously ill," he explained in a sympathetic voice.
I felt my world shatter into a million pieces when I heard the news. My arms tightened around the kitten I was holding, as if I could somehow protect it from the same fate. I could feel my whole body shaking, like a leaf in a storm, as I tried desperately to hold myself together. But it was no use, the tears came anyway, hot and unstoppable, cascading down my cheeks like a waterfall of grief. "It can't be true," I cried out, my voice breaking with each word. "How could this happen? Just like Dad, gone, just like that?" The pain in my chest was unbearable, like someone had reached in and was squeezing my heart with an iron fist. I thought of all the hours I'd spent caring for those kittens, all the love I'd poured into them. It felt like it had all been for nothing, and that realization cut deeper than any knife ever could. I tried so hard, I sobbed, barely able to get the words out between gasps for air. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. It's never enough. In that moment, I felt like a failure, not just to the kitten, but to my dad's memory, to my mom, to everyone. The weight of loss pressed down on me like a heavy blanket, suffocating and inescapable. I wanted to run away, to hide, to wake up and find out this was all just a terrible dream. But I knew it wasn't, and that knowledge was the cruelest part of all.
Scarlett's words were filled with pain, her small frame looking even more fragile in the face of such immense sorrow. Her sobs echoed through the room, and Eric placed a hand on her shoulder, silently feeling the depth of her suffering. Laura, her heart breaking at the sight of her daughter's anguish, began to cry as well. She knelt beside Scarlett, feeling the girl's pain as if it were her own. Laura tried to comfort Scarlett, telling her to calm down and reminding her that there were still other kittens, but she felt helpless. In the face of Scarlett's overwhelming grief, any words seemed meaningless, but Laura couldn't help but try. The anguish on Laura's face reflected a mother's desperation to see her daughter happy. Scarlett looked at her mother with eyes full of sorrow and determination, finally ready to reveal the reason for her secret. With a trembling voice and tears streaming down her face, Scarlett began to explain why she had been secretly caring for the kittens. Each word seemed to be torn from her, as if ripping her heart apart. She explained that she wanted to do for the kittens what she couldn't do for her father, save their lives. That's why she brought them home, tried to protect and save them, but felt she had failed. Every word carried the weight of her pain and guilt, revealing the burden she had been carrying. Scarlett's words resonated with Laura, bringing a new understanding of her daughter's pain. Laura tried to comfort her, assuring her that she hadn't failed, that she had done everything she could. She told Scarlett that her actions showed how big her heart was, and that sometimes, even when we do our best, things don't work out. Laura hugged Scarlett tightly, feeling her daughter's tears soaking her blouse. The embrace conveyed all the strength and love she wanted to give. Eric watched the scene, deeply moved. He had never imagined such a young girl could carry such a heavy burden. In Scarlett's small figure, he saw a courage that many adults lacked. Eric comforted Scarlett, telling her she was very brave and that what she did for the kittens was truly wonderful. He assured her that she didn't need to bear this alone, and that they would continue to care for and help the remaining kittens. His voice was steady and full of empathy. Scarlett began to calm down a little, still in her mother's arms. The warmth of her mother's embrace and the comforting words began to slowly melt the wall of pain she had been feeling. Laura stroked her daughter's hair, feeling waves of love and protection wash over her. She promised to help care for the kittens together, assuring Scarlett that she didn't need to shoulder everything alone. Laura knew the healing journey would be long, but she was determined to move forward one step at a time. Every word was filled with a mother's unconditional love. As Scarlett began to settle, Eric thought about what he could do for the girl. He felt she needed to know there was something she could do to help the kittens. He suggested that they ensure the kittens receive the care they need, and invited Scarlett to come to the hospital anytime to check on them. Scarlett nodded, looking a bit calmer. Knowing she could continue to care for the kittens, a glimmer of hope appeared in her eyes. Laura looked at Eric with gratitude, feeling that they couldn't have overcome this without his help. "Thank you for everything, Doctor. You've been a tremendous support for us," Laura said, her voice filled with emotion. Eric smiled and nodded, feeling honored to have been able to help. "It's my honor, Laura. Let's work together to help Scarlett and the kittens get better," he replied, determined to do everything he could to help the family through this difficult time. He felt a new sense of responsibility for Scarlett and the kittens' happiness, and a dedication to them. Eric looked at the kitten in Scarlett's arms and gently said, "May I take that kitten? I'd like to bring it inside and give it the care it needs." Scarlett looked at the kitten one last time, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. She slowly handed the kitten to Eric, trusting him to do his best. "Please," she pleaded with teary eyes. Eric nodded and carefully cradled the kitten. "I promise I'll do everything I can to help," he assured them before turning to enter the hospital. Laura and Scarlett said goodbye to Eric, expressing their gratitude once more as they left the hospital. As they exited, Laura hugged Scarlett tightly, feeling a deep sense of relief. "Let's go home. We need to talk a lot and make plans for what's next," she said, her voice full of love and determination. Scarlett nodded, feeling a little lighter. Mother and daughter headed home together, determined to overcome any difficulties they might face. At the hospital, Eric examined the animals, looking for signs of illness and checking their nutritional status. As he did so, he noticed something unusual about some of the kittens. They had collars or markings indicating they weren't strays, but lost pets. "These are someone's pets," he thought, feeling a mix of surprise and hope. He picked up one of the collars and read the name and phone number engraved on it. He knew he needed to act quickly to reunite these kittens with their families. Taking a deep breath, he prepared to make some calls. He hoped to bring good news to families who were probably desperately searching for their pets. The next day, Laura and Scarlett arrived at the hospital, ready to help care for the animals. Eric called them over and explained his discovery. "Laura, Scarlett, I found out that some of these cats are actually lost pets with families desperately searching for them," he said, watching their reactions. Laura's mouth fell open in surprise, while Scarlett was visibly moved. "I can't believe it. We need to contact those families right away," Laura said, feeling a new sense of purpose. Scarlett nodded vigorously, her eyes shining with determination. She knew this could bring joy to many people. Scarlett could barely contain her excitement at the thought of families being reunited with their lost pets. "Mom, let's start right now. We can make posters and post on social media," she suggested, her mind already full of ideas. Laura smiled and hugged her daughter. "That's right. Let's do everything we can to help," she replied, feeling proud of Scarlett's determination. The idea of bringing happiness to many people energized them. Laura, Scarlett, and Eric began planning their campaign together. They took photos of the animals and prepared posters to distribute around the city. Eric started calling the families whose contact information was on the cat's collars. "Hello, we found your cat. We're taking care of it at our hospital," Eric would say, feeling the joy and relief of the people on the other end of the line. Each call brought a new wave of emotion as he realized he was creating moments of happiness for someone. Meanwhile, Laura and Scarlett were busy distributing posters and posting on social media. The response was immediate. As days passed, more and more families visited the hospital to collect their pets. Each reunion was filled with emotion. "Oh, my God. I thought I'd never see you again," one woman cried as she hugged her kitten, tears streaming down her face. Scarlett watched this, feeling her heart fill with warmth. "Mom, we're doing something wonderful," she said, a big smile spreading across her face. Laura nodded, feeling immensely proud of her daughter. Each successful reunion strengthened their bond with the community. The campaign quickly caught the attention of local media. Reporters began visiting the hospital to interview Laura, Scarlett, and Eric. "Scarlett, how does it feel to help reunite these animals with their families?" a reporter asked, pointing a microphone at the girl. Scarlett smiled shyly, but her eyes were shining with joy. "I'm very happy. It's wonderful that everyone can be reunited with their families," she answered, feeling like a small hero. The reporters captured every moment, turning the campaign into the talk of the town. The impact of their actions began to ripple through the city. As attention grew, Scarlett and Laura decided to expand their campaign to help other animals on the streets. "We want to help more animals," Laura thought, feeling the urgency of the cause. With Eric's help, they began organizing adoption events and raising funds for animal shelters. "Let's make sure every animal finds a loving home," Eric said, inspired by Laura and Scarlett's dedication. The community rallied around the cause, and donations started pouring in. The adoption events were consistently successful, with many animals finding new families. Scarlett introduced the kittens to people at the events, explaining their individual characteristics. "This one loves to play and run around chasing paper balls," she said, watching children's faces light up. Laura watched in awe of her daughter's ability to connect people and animals. "Scarlett, you're doing an amazing job," she whispered to herself. She felt her daughter was destined for great things. With each success, Scarlett's popularity as an animal advocate continued to grow. She became a symbol of hope and compassion in the community. "I'm going to continue this work," she said with determination to her mother and Eric. Amidst all this, Scarlett felt a special attachment to one old cat that no one had adopted. She cared for it devotedly, spending time talking to the cat as if it were an old friend. "What kind of life have you lived, Grandpa?" she said, gently petting the purring cat. Scarlett felt a special connection with the cat, as if it understood her pain and offered quiet comfort. She couldn't help but think how wonderful it would be to welcome this cat into her family. Laura watched with a mixture of concern and tenderness as Scarlett's affection for the old cat deepened. She understood that her daughter was projecting her emotions onto the animal, but also saw how it was helping to heal her daughter's wounds. "Scarlett, you're spending quite a lot of time with that cat, aren't you?" Laura said, trying to understand her daughter's feelings. Scarlett looked at her mother, her eyes shining with a mix of joy and sadness. "He reminds me of Grandpa. I think this cat needs to be loved by someone too," she replied in a gentle, emotional voice. Laura felt a tightness in her chest at her daughter's thoughts. Dr. Eric noticed the special bond between Scarlett and the old cat. He investigated the cat's background further and discovered it had belonged to an elderly person who had recently passed away. "Scarlett, about your furry friend here," he said. Eric called the girl to a quiet corner of the hospital. Scarlett looked at him curiously, ready to hear about the cat. "This cat belonged to an elderly person who recently passed away. There's no one else to take him in," he explained, watching the girl's reaction. Scarlett felt a wave of sadness upon hearing the cat's story. "So, he's lost someone important too," she murmured, stroking the cat with even more affection. Understanding what it meant to lose someone dear, she felt an even stronger responsibility to care for the cat. "Eric, I want to adopt this cat. I want to give him a home and the love he deserves," she declared with a determined voice. Eric smiled, feeling a deep respect for Scarlett. "I thought you might say that. I'm sure this cat will be very happy with you," he replied, moved by the girl's determination. Laura felt a mix of pride and concern upon hearing Scarlett's decision. "Are you sure you're ready to take on all the responsibilities, Scarlett?" she asked, wanting to make sure her daughter was prepared to care for an older cat. Scarlett looked at her mother with determined eyes. "Yes, Mom. This cat needs me, and I need him too. We can support each other," she said, feeling a new inner strength growing. Laura nodded, accepting her daughter's determination. "Well then, this cat is going to be a new member of our family," she said with a gentle smile. The relationship between Scarlett, Laura, and the new cat began to develop rapidly. "He's so affectionate," Scarlett said as the cat curled up on her lap. Laura watched these interactions, feeling waves of gratitude. The cat's presence brought new happiness to their lives, filling their days with love and kindness. Dr. Eric continued to support Laura and her family, providing guidance and support. "Scarlett, how's Grandpa doing?" he would always ask, concerned about the cat's health. Scarlett would answer enthusiastically with a smile. "He's doing great. I think he likes his new home," she said, proud of her responsibility. Eric was satisfied with Scarlett's dedication and saw how it was strengthening family bonds. Laughter once again echoed through the house, filled with love and kindness. "He's really brought joy into our lives," Laura thought as she watched Scarlett play with the cat. Laura felt she was finally overcoming the pain of loss and beginning to find a new path. "I'm so grateful we met these animals," she thought, feeling her heart lighten. Scarlett smiled happily as she watched animals reunite with their owners. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing their actions were creating happiness. The old cat, now a family member, snuggled closer to Scarlett, as if understanding her happiness. Scarlett then decided to create a shelter for stray animals on the streets. This idea consumed her, and she dedicated all her free time to this new plan. "This will be a place where all animals can find love and safety," she thought, feeling waves of hope and purpose. With Eric's unconditional support, sharing her passion for animal protection, her dream began to take shape. "I want to be part of this plan, Scarlett. I'm sure we can make your dream come true," Eric said enthusiastically. With Eric's help, they organized new events in the community to raise funds for building the shelter. "Every cent donated brings us one step closer to our goal," she thought. Inspired by Scarlett and Laura's activities, the community responded with generosity and support. "I'm touched by everyone's willingness to help," Laura said. Scarlett was moved by each act of kindness from people and was filled with gratitude. Every day brought new challenges, but also new victories. "We'll need volunteers to make the operation more active," Eric suggested while overseeing the shelter's construction. Scarlett agreed. "I'm sure the community will help. They're looking forward to the shelter's completion as much as we are," she replied with unprecedented confidence. Eric's words continued to support her even when things got difficult. As the shelter took shape, Scarlett and Eric planned every detail with love. "I want this place to be not just a shelter, but a home for the animals," Scarlett said as they discussed the design of the communal living areas for the animals. Their ideas always kept the animals' happiness in mind, and this was reflected in every area and detail of the shelter. The shelter's opening was an emotional event. People from the community gathered to celebrate Scarlett and Eric's success. "Today, we open the door to a better future for many animals," Scarlett said in an emotion-filled voice at the opening ceremony. She received applause from everyone, feeling the weight of responsibility but also great satisfaction. "This is just the beginning," she thought, looking at the happy faces around her. The joy in her heart was evident. At the end of the long day, Laura, Scarlett, and Eric sat together in the shelter, reflecting on what they had accomplished. "We've achieved so much in such a short time," Laura said, looking at her daughter and Eric with gratitude. "And there's still so much more to do," Eric replied, inspired by their progress. Scarlett smiled as she petted the old cat, now a family member. "I'm so happy we started this together. I can't wait to see what the future holds," she said. Scarlett's words summed up the spirit of hope and determination that guided everyone at the shelter. The shelter quickly became a safe haven for many troubled animals. "Here, they can get a second chance at life," Scarlett said as she welcomed animals into the shelter. Eric, always by her side, watched with pride. "You made this happen, Scarlett. You've turned your pain into something beautiful," he praised, acknowledging the girl's strength and compassion. Moved by Eric's words, Scarlett felt even more motivated to continue her work. Scarlett reflected on her life from losing her father to establishing the shelter. "I've turned my grief into something positive," she thought, feeling a mix of nostalgia and pride. "Dad would be proud of me," she whispered to herself, feeling a deep connection. The pain of loss wasn't gone, but she is now filled with a sense of purpose and accomplishment. Scarlett's dedication and Eric's support were crucial in making the shelter dream a reality. "We couldn't have done this without you," Scarlett told Eric as they walked through the vibrant shelter. "We're a team," Scarlet, Eric replied with a smile. Scarlet's love and determination were the pillars of this achievement. Each rescued animal and each life touched were testaments to the positive impact they had created together. The shelter was not just a place for animals, but a symbol of hope for the community. Each adoption was a blessing and a step towards a more compassionate world. Laura's pride in her daughter was immeasurable. Scarlet's story became a touching example of how the grief of losing a father transformed into love and compassion for animals. It's proof that with love, any challenge can be overcome, Scarlet thought, feeling a sense of inner peace. Scarlet's dedication and Eric's support proved that dreams could become reality. Our dream is just beginning, Scarlet thought, her heart full of hope and gratitude. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. This helps me continue to share wonderful stories every day. Don't miss our next amazing story. It's showing on your screen right now. Thank you so much for your support. See you next time.